and welcome back. For today's lesson, I want you to go ahead and challenge yourself to make your own animation using a simple bouncing ball-like shape. So just as an example, I created a quick 4-frame animation here, effectively recreating almost like a pinball scene. So I have, of course, some different frames set up here. And so I have frame 1, 2, 3, 4. And I've also created this bouncer object here that the ball is going to effectively bounce off of. Because that's one thing we can also do is we don't have to necessarily duplicate the motion necessarily of everything if it's a static object. So for example, this bouncer object exists here as its own thing in bouncer deform. We'll see this more as we start getting to more animation where you can start instead of having to duplicate everything on every single frame, you may only need to duplicate certain elements, certain layers need to be on or off. And so if we look here, there's 4 frames of animation. So in the first frame, we have, of course, the ball starting. In the second frame, we've moved the ball down and the paddles come up to switch to that frame. Frame 3 now, of course, you'll see that we hit the bouncer deform here. So this is, of course, the same image here that I had set up with, but now it's switching to the bouncer one. So this one just gets toggled on and off, and that's the nice thing with making these frame animations is I can simply just toggle which layers I want to be present. And then for the 4th frame, of course, it's going back up, and I've resumed showing the original bouncer. So you can have more than one layer shown when you're doing a frame-by-frame animation here. And of course, the end result is when I play this, you can see it's a very quick and simple animation here, but it simulates, so we have our paddle moving, and of course we have our bouncer here. You'll notice that it does effectively deform as we're doing that. And you will notice that when I did the bouncer deform, you can see it's not that much different, but I did a bicubic transformation on it that allowed me to kind of give a little bit of effect of some blur here. So when I play that animation, it's a lot more solid in some of the presentation because it's not necessarily going to be those hard pixel lines. Compare that to the paddle here, which had completely nearest neighbor. We don't have as much of that motion blur in effect here because, for one, we just rotated this image up and down. We kept to nearest neighbor. And because there's no blur here, it can be a lot more jarring to look at visually versus this simple shape right here, which is having different effects applied to it. So again, this has done a lot of the different techniques that we've talked to up to this point. And what I want you to do is go ahead and try to create your own bouncing ball. So it could be something such as a pinball setup like this. You could, of course, also do something like maybe you want to do a basketball going through net. Maybe you want to do a soccer ball going through that net. It's up to you how you do it, but what I want you to challenge yourself with is to have not simply just the ball object moving this time. I want you to try to have some other element in your animation be moving. So for example, here I have a paddle, and then I also have the bouncer element here as well. So challenge yourself, and let's see what you can create.